I'm since 4 years I'm working in JavaScript, JavaScript frameworks with ReactJs, Redux, and all. And mostly I worked in a front end side. I also worked as a full stack with Node.js in backend. In only 1 hour. Yes.
So how do you manage in your React application? How do you manage styling the components?
For styling component, we used core CSS. CSS only. But one of my good project was Go We are using Bootstrap and style component is there. Style component also I used, and Bootstrap also I used.
Okay. And in current project, you mentioned that you are completely using CSS, right? So how do you manage, like manage in the sense like how do you structure it? Like let's say example, if you are creating one component, right? So will you also create one CSS file for that? Let's say a
Yes.
button.js, you have created one button.js as a component, right? Now you will also create button.css for that. Is that the case?
No. Actually, for most of the case, like mostly parts are there, like buttons and colors and font size and that type thing. We are creating dynamic classes for that, and we are used to use that in buttons and everywhere. And for some kind of large component like a dashboard and a book page, that type of thing, we are creating a separate files for every component. Like for dashboard, it is that dashboard CSS, and for books it is there, but it is having only that of CSS that are going to use only in dashboard, and like to handling sizing and that type of thing. And to handling styling and colors and that UI thing, we are mostly we use like that. The, there are one global file, and there we are adding one class for that, and that class we are using everywhere.
Okay.
Simply like Bootstrap, it's own created.
Okay. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. And how do you handle API calls in your applications?
API for APIs, my last organization we have Ajax call simple, and previously I mostly used XCS and XS services and interceptors, that thing.
Sorry, what did you mention at the last?
Interceptors, XCS interceptors.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. So how do you get the response? Like, how do you handle the responses? Or wherever you call the API, let's say, we can consider one example. Let us say
Sure.
login page is one example. Okay. Now user enter his credentials, email
Okay.
address, password, and click on the submit button. Now where you will make the call, or how will you handle the responses?
Sure. Yeah. Basically, for API, for the whole API, we have one service. We created one service for API. There we are importing and using XCS and this library. And after that, another one services we are handling, like for log another one for register, one for getting data. So that type of service, we had different services for that, and there we are handling this part, like whatever data like username and password, we need to give it to service. We are importing and using that service. So in the code level, in the component, in the code, we are not using directly XCS and giving it the API method and all. We just importing the service. Service means in the sense function, and we are using it. And as I mentioned, interceptor. So in the main service file, we added that middleware thing. So in the whole project, we added that if API gives some bad request response or 401, so handling it at a single place. Like if it is 401, then we are this user to you are unauthorized and please relog in. So and after that user is redirected to login. So it is handled by a single place. Like in all project, every API code will be applied to.
Okay, got it.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Fine. So how will you handle multiple API calls in this case? Let's say again the same example, login. If on submit button, let's say login will only happen based on the 3 API responses. Let's say simple. Okay.
Okay.
So like, what is your approach of implementing? There could be some, the login page is just an example. Okay, there could be other
Yes.
scenarios where you have to make multiple API calls.
Okay. Yeah. So if we have 3 API calls, and depending on that, if that 3 API calls are completed after we are completing login thing. So basically it is promise, like it is asynchronous. So we need to make it wait. JavaScript, we need to add some kind of, we need to make it synchronous. Like you can, there are a few ways, like we can simply use sync await for to handling that. So it will, one by one, if it will execute and wait for every API call. And also one thing is promise.all, I think. So for that, by that we can do like it will wait all the execution to be fulfilled, and after all the provided API calls done, then after it will give callback. Callback means we can after that proceed for login or next step.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say in both the scenarios, like whatever you mentioned, right? Let's consider the first scenario. You mentioned about the async await, right?
Yes.
I think there is other way also that you can change the promises, right? Are you familiar about it? How to change the promises one after another?
Yes, chain dot then dot get. You mean?
Yes. So if
Yes,
there are
I
multiple asynchronous calls in dot then another response you will get, and you another dot then, right? So that is a chaining of the promises. Are
yes,
you
we
aware
can do
about
that.
it?
Yes, I also use that also.
Okay. So in that case, I just wanted to understand. Let's say if you make first API call, if it is first is successful in dot, then you make the second API call, right?
Yes,
If the second fails, then what happens to the third one? Will it get called or not called?
No, it will not call.
Okay, all right. And
because it is in chaining. Because it's in chaining, that's why it will not call.
Okay. And what happens in the second scenario that you mentioned about the promise.all, right?
Yes.
Here also, let's say if two are successful, and the one is failed, okay, what happens? The promise.all will give the resolved or a rejected.
No, I think it will give rejected. But for that, it is. I'm not pretty sure because from the last. Before 6 to 8 months, I used that. But it will not reject the whole process. It will give the response like these two are success and this one is failed.
No, actually, it will reject because that is the whole purpose of it. That if all are resolved, then only give the success.
Okay.
That is all. That is why promise.all is there.
Yes. Okay, my bad.
Okay. So
got it.
Okay, no problem. So what is your understanding on React's architecture? How things work in React, or what is your understanding on it?
Understanding on ReactJS.
Right. Just want to understand the architecture part.
Yes, actually, as it is using virtual DOM, so React is handling with a page application, as it is single page application. So in the performance level and in the performance level also, it can be very useful. Like whatever things we are updating, it will only affect that, and it will not affect anything. If a single, if we are handling a big single component, and that time also, if we are updating only single part, that time also it will not remove and update all the component parts in the DOM. It will only update the affected part. So it's handled by React and Virtual DOM. So it has some kind of what to say, algorithms and like that. So it can be handled like that in React. So one of the major and big advantage and use cases is this, like to use its functional feature of dynamic rank and single page application. And also one more, like state management and life cycle and all.
Okay. So, okay. So when talking about virtual DOM, what happens? Let's say if any node is changed, right? Will that child will also be changed or marked as changed?
No, if we talk of in virtual DOM, if we talk in virtual DOM in DOM, and actually in HUL DOM, in HUL DOM, if we are updating some part in parent component, and its child are not dependent on that, then child will not update.
Okay. And what happens in the UI part actually? Okay, when you implement the UI, the components, right? Component part. So what happens there? Let's say if my parent component re-renders, okay, for any reason. So what happens to child component? Will it also re-render?
Yes, got your point. Yes, it will re-render. Basically, if we in general manner it will render, but if we are using some kind of features of React, like pure component and some life cycle, then we can handle it. But generally, it will, if parent component is re-rendering, then child will also re-render.
So that's a unnecessary render could also happen, right, to my child component. So
yes.
Because if I'm passing the same props, or even if my child component is not receiving any props, still it will re-render. Yes. So what are the ways of stopping it if you don't want?
Yes, as I mentioned before, like we can use pure component. We can make it pure component. Pure component is there, and one is memo, and also life cycle also there. It's called should component update. So we can avoid re-rendering by using that.
All right. Fine.
Yes.
So when talking about components, have you heard about higher order components?
Yes. I heard about, yes. Can I describe it?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So higher order component I used like to make a single, logic reusable. Like we have basically higher order component. What it is do, like it is getting one component, and also it is returning another component or the same component in the child. Like it works like a wrapper, and inside that we can handle whatever features or functionality we need to add. Some majorly, I use like to give some extra data, or to give some data by app level state or some kind of API. I used higher order component. So what we are doing, so we are using it as a wrapper, and whatever child component we are getting in higher component, from that props we can get some data whatever requested, and based on that we can perform some operations there, and also that components props we can update it, and again return the same component. So it will return the same component, but we can make some changes, or we can add some components also, wrapper also, like that kind of thing we can do with higher order component.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Also, have you worked on Redux?
Yes, Redux.
So what exactly is Redux? What is the use case of it?
Yes. When I talk with, in use case of Redux, basically in React, we have some, we can say limitation, like if we want to handle a state in the app level state, and we want to use that variable or data into mostly of our components, but that can be child, very deep level of hierarchy level.
Uh-huh.
So it would be, somehow difficult to handle it, or so for that, Redux, we can use Redux to manage the state in app level state. So if we have Redux, so we can, by Redux store, we can have that state in app level, and wherever we need it and we want to update it, we just need to connect the Redux to that component and use its features, like we can make action calls, and we can get the data from Redux. So Redux is mostly, major use case is that, like, we can maintain our app level state with the Redux.
Okay. So, okay. And then have you used Context API?
Yes, context API. I haven't used much in projects, but I added some examples and for that. So
So context is
context.
also, see, context is also used for the you passing the props to the child, or maybe deep down the child hierarchies, right?
Yes. Context is also used, like we can say, like we can use the in the same way like Redux. Yeah, but I have, some read something and like that. So in the high level of complexity or data handling, can use, instead of context, we can use Redux.
Okay. Okay.
Also, Redux has some features like middleware and developer tools, that kind of thing. So at the time of developing application, it would be very helpful for us.
Okay. Okay. So you just mentioned about middleware. So what exactly is middleware?
Middleware, exactly, like we have middleware, like whatever operations, or when we call actions. So middleware is one type of get, we can say, like it will go through this first. Yeah, middleware, that kind of thing. Like if I take an example, we generally I used in my previous project, I used Logger middleware, and also another one is message pop-up.
Okay.
So what we are doing for displaying message and message, or like that pop-up or notification to user. So we have one middleware there. So if in action we are calling an action with the meta tag. Meta means not tag. Meta, in object we have meta key, and inside that we are handling message and status of message, like it is success or failed or warning. And in middleware we are checking, like if meta is coming, and also inside that if message and status are there, then let's display the message to the user. So it is just handled at one place, with connected with Redux. And whenever we want to display warning, success or failure message, we are just calling action for that. So Redux will handle it with middleware.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So about a few one JavaScript actually. This is about JavaScript. Okay. So when let's say you create one array using constant array is equal to the bracket, and maybe array is a holds some string. Okay. So can you append the array after declaring this?
Oh, no, time the array.
Or maybe you can add some value.
Yes, we can add.
How you will add? Just curious about, see, because you are creating a constant array is equal to using constant, right?
Yes. Yes, we can use. But basically, constant. If you are if you are declaring some variable with const, so we cannot reinitialize that. But by using some array functions and existing methods, JavaScript methods, we can I mean push some data, or we can add the data inside the array. Same like object. If object is created by const, and we can add some another values to it. But yes, if we declare the array like const a is equal to array, and we cannot again initialize it like a is equal to the array. So yeah, but if we want to add some new, I mean push some new elements inside array, so we can use JavaScript inbuilt methods for that, array method.
So do you know how does it work? Because see, array, let's say it was length was 2, it got 3, right? So array got changed. So how does it work? Do you know what exactly it is? Because you are declaring as a constant, but you are changing the array, right?
Yes. So yeah, basically, I mean, by using constant, whenever we are adding array is changed, that is right. Array is changed means its value is means length is updating and value is updating. But memory reference, if we talk with memory reference, so in the memory, I mean, in JavaScript, it is not creating it with different memory or another memory slot. If it will update with the same whatever its variable. So if I talk with initialization, if we initialize define the value variable again and again, like a is equal to different array, again a is equal to different array. So every time it will it will use a different memory, and it will allocate that a different memory location. And if we are using const using, and if we are adding and updating by using methods like we are pushing into array, and we are getting back some elements from array, then it will not reallocate memory every time. It will update the